Okay. Yes, Kant's concept of enlightenment is not entirely unified. For example, there are at least two definitions, early and late. They are both from a critical period, both in political context, and don't contradict each other, but rather complement each other. In the most famous version, in the article of on the Enlightenment of 1784, Kant notes that enlightenment is the human being's emancipation from its self-incurred immaturity. Here I use the translation from the book Toward Perpetual Peace and Other Writings edited by Pauline Kleingeld, not from Cambridge edition if there will be any remarks on translation. Another version we meet in the context of the faculties from 1798. Popular enlightenment is the public instruction of the people in its duties and rights with regard to the state to which it belongs. These two aspects or two sides of enlightenment both have to do with Kant's thinking about the progress of humankind, especially the second definition. A few lines above, Kant assures us that humankind has always progressed and will further progress toward the better. Then there is a question about the role of education. Kant asks, from where is the better condition of the world supposed to come? From the princes or from the subjects? The sentence from the lectures on pedagogy is this. This lecture come from 1770s, 1780s, so earlier than the contest of faculties. Both ways are problematic in Kant's view, from the bottom up as well as from the top down. The path from the top down seems to be more probable, more realistic, means Kant. He's very sober and realistic as he discusses this topic, even skeptical, I would say, about the perspectives. Should subjects first better themselves on their own and meet a good government halfway? This is the question, and the answer is unlikely. Kant argues as follows. Firstly, a good education is expensive, and the people believe that educating the youth should be financed by the state. But the state finances primarily the armed forces. The money goes to war. So in the context of the faculties. Secondly, education process should be based on a considered plan. But who could build and realize this plan? The education of the princes has always had the large defect that in their youth, no one resisted them. Such a lack of opposition is not good for the formation of thinking, as we know from lectures on pedagogy. Equals educate them, but it would be better if they subjects educate them. It's better yet that they be educated by someone from among their subjects rather than by one from their own rank. Well, is there any hope left? According to the lectures on pedagogy, the hope can be placed on private enterprise and let the employers also develop an educational plan. So power and money don't accomplish it, but at most facilitate it. For experienced teachers that the princess, well, yes, I'm sorry that I have already said about these sentences. So yes, again, power and money don't accomplish it, but at most facilitate it, the educational process under considered plan. The context of the faculties contains more generalized and more skeptical sentences even. Science, it's also human beings who do the work of educating and therefore have had to be educated themselves. And the frailty of human nature comes onto the scene, and also it's also the problem. Well, yet concerning what can be expected and demanded of human beings, it's only negative wisdom. Positive wisdom comes from nature, what we can hope on, and what is then negative wisdom, namely the elimination of war, because war, after Kant, is the greatest hindrance to moral progress. So there can be the power of private efforts of entrepreneurs, possibly also talented persons who are enthusiasts to some extent, but in the end, all this is again questionable. The entire system of educational institutions, from private home to higher education, is also questionable. Here's the first citation corresponding to this thought. Well, a skepticism toward educational institutions. Again, the reasons, which are the possible reasons for this view, they can be found in Kant's earlier lectures on pedagogy. It follows next. That children should be educated not only with regard to the present, but rather for a better condition of the human species that might be possible in the future. But usual way is another. Parents usually care only that their children get on well in the world, and princes regard their subjects merely as instruments for their own designs. I come to how the princes do it more precise later. Now, well, this common way, what parents do. So parents care for the home, princes for the state. Neither have as their final end the best for the world and the perfection to which humanity is destined, and for which it also has the predisposition. Cosmopolitan manner, Kant also mentions here. Well, let's focus on efforts to eliminate war and to move toward perpetual peace, which is Kant's project in eliminating war. First, I remember what the positive wisdom of nature is, what reasons Kant gives to believe in it. In his political philosophy, Kant speaks of wisdom in two aspects: wisdom of nature and political wisdom. The wisdom of nature is proclaimed in the context of the idea of providence. This wisdom consists in the expediency of those inclinations that are in human nature, namely those inclinations that develop into character traits and are manifested in moral culture and in technical culture. It's possible to conclude that wisdom exists only in particular aims, but not in general picture. It could be concluded so. Experience gives us many reasons to conclude that people don't have their own reasonable plan, and the claim to rationality in individual actions remains as a whole only a game of greatness. But we also have continuing existence of the human race, and as well as historical process and even progress in some view. How can we explain it? Using this idea of plan or end of nature in regard of the humankind, its natural end. Sorry, still actual. This is how Kant introduces his well-known idea of unsociable sociability in the idea of universal history. This is a combination of a tendency to communicate, to associate, to communicate with combination with egoistic tendency to resist, to conflict, or to compete. This idea explains the complex dialectics of development of individual predispositions in interaction with other people. And here should come accordingly citation about our inclination. Yes, the first inclination to communication. The second is also clear, and this passage, how they, which relation do they have to each other? Well, the idea of the wisdom of nature appears in several of Kant's writings, including Towards Perpetual Peace. Providence is defined here as underlying wisdom of a higher cause that predetermines the course of events in the world and is directed towards the objective that is Kantian natural, objective in Kantian sense here is natural final end of the humankind. In theoretical regard, this wisdom is incognizable, transcendent, but in practical regard, this end of the providence corresponds to the moral end prescribed by reason. The wisdom of nature is presented in the facts that first, conflicts between peoples induce these peoples to create states for organized protection from enemies. Second, the difference in language and beliefs divides people and prevents the building of a united world despoty. Thirdly, nature, with the help of trade interests, encourages peaceful relations between those peoples or nations that otherwise would have been impossible to keep from war by legal means. So they are 3 points of Kant's famous guarantee for perpetual peace. Thus, Kant considers it possible that the egoistic inclinations of people restrain, neutralize each other. This is possible with a good organization of the state, and we are quite capable of it. But Kant doesn't at all claim that this is reality. No, this is our task. For a good organization of state. Kant doesn't intend to proclaim egoism as a self-sufficient force that leads people to self-development. In the groundwork to the metaphysics of morals, this is clear with all distinctness as he explains his moral theory. Egoism must be limited by reason and rational action. In this sense, Kant's views are in line with a prevailing trend in modern ethics, which can be characterized as the concept of the rational soul and self-actualization. Almost in parallel with the idea of universal history, Kant writes the article on the concept of enlightenment, in which he explains that nature has longly made people free from someone else's leadership, and this leadership remains only in the public order, without natural predispositions already. The traditional paternalistic system of the state has outlived, is no more effective, is outdated, so to say, it's no longer natural. What should be the political system? We'll learn more from Kant's works in the 19th. The state system should be republican, with a clear division of powers based on the principles of civil freedom, equality, and independence, or in contrast, certain art of dependence. Should be at the heart of the legal system. To enter the war, a plebiscite or parliamentary vote should be held. In addition, a permanent international congress of states is required, so that freedom, equality, and independence are also ensured at the level of entire nations. However, this is not easy to realize. What hinders this? What else contributes to how it's possible to bypass the barriers. Kant discusses these issues in detail in the appendix of the treatise in the context of the relationship between politics and morality. We remember that Kant quite strictly divides morality and law, mostly in order to protect the sphere of moral freedom from petty small legal regulations that were typical of the paternalistic Germany of his time. But in the sphere of politics, for some reason, the system of law only is not enough. It turns out that it's important to orient politics in addition to morality. How difficult is it to implement? Pure theory doesn't bode, is not proper, not enough for it. Kant calls morality a theoretical jurisprudence and politics as practical jurisprudence, and there is no dispute between them, but this is only in the ideal. Combining morality with politics is not an art at all, although politics itself is a quite difficult art. Kant admits it, as he also admits that honesty is not the best policy. Politics, honesty is above all politics. However, it happens that morality is understood as a general doctrine of prudence. Sometimes, not in Kant. Kant defines the doctrine of prudence as the theory of maxims which allows us to choose the most appropriate means for personal profitable aims. When applied to politics, Kant contrasts political wisdom, Staatsweisheit, and political prudence, political expediency. Political wisdom consists precisely in the implementation of moral policy. The problem of state prudence is a technical problem of achieving eternal peace, internal and external, as a physical good in a broad sense. The solution of this technical problem requires great knowledge of nature in order to use its mechanism to achieve the intended goal. The problem of political wisdom, so in contrast to political prudence, the problem of political wisdom is a moral problem, the solution of which Kant characterizes as a very simple science, as you might guess. The search for this solution corresponds to deductive derivation of principles that Kant prescribes in a moral sphere, in principles following from categorical imperative. If we build a full-fledged political theory and practice according to Kant, then these two problems, technical and moral, complement to each other. They must be solved in parallel, since the state of eternal peace is wished, it's good as physical good at the same extent as the state arising from the recognition of duty. Physical and moral good must complement each other. In particular, Kant reminds that one should refrain from striving to implement pure principles or ideas of law completely, immediately, and with so rigorously. What should be is to conform to favorable circumstances and gradually improve the state structure, approaching the ideal on the way of reforms, as well as creating laws of permissibility as middle stage laws between state of nature and pure theory of law. Why do practical politicians choose the pursuit of why do they choose the pursuit of peace as a physical good only, And why this ultimately, in Kant's view, leads to an escalation of war and inequality. Kant explains this for the condition of this time as follows. He depicts extreme and concentrated forms of modes of reasoning, beliefs, and justifications. The negative image of politician is a political moralist. How does he reason? In pursuit of a specific material image of political good, he subordinates principles of action to a specific goal. Material principle is this. While he should follow only the form of his maxims. The result is that political moralists justify unjust principles of state structure and administration, referring on human nature, which is incapable of good, which implies that improving any rules of law has no sense and impossible. The correct strategy, according to Kant, is to listen to the opinion of philosophers, to see and in order to recognize what is not right in the state order and what signs of injustice there are in the structure of the state or its external relations, and in order to try to eliminate it all as soon as possible, but not too quickly, as I say above. What is important is the very understanding of the need for change and the our duty to get closer to the best order according to its legal laws. Kant had favorite subjects of criticism in the field of political strategies. If you try to imagine them in coherent system, the main value for a typical unkind ruler is the achievement, preservation, and increase. To achieve, to save, and increase his power of the state, both inside and outside. Then eudaimonism, material principle mentioned above, another guideline, favor instead of duty, and adaptability. So this conservatism, adaptability that comes from a way of thinking of lawyers, who find each political order the best one, just because they just search to realize their own aims, to become their own, yes, to use this order for their own aims. And accordingly, what following in this system is the picture of humankind. In this view, people are militant, stubborn, and prone to indignation, incapable of freedom and moral progress, and so on. This whole naturalism and mechanistic picture. So in this view, moral progress is impossible, and as we could see, also to build politics on the principles of morality is impossible, and as well as has no sense. But in Kant's own view, humankind is, of course, another, although not too far from this picture. So this destructiveness can be found there. Here I base this description mainly on not on his political writings, because in political writings they were created mostly in polemics. So this the picture that Kant draws in political writings is too strong. It's with many metaphors. Where he means it more seriously are his writings on religion, on theodicy problem, and religion in the boundaries of pure reason. And from there, as I think we know, this destructiveness, hostility, laziness, and cowardice, and unfairness in the view of own motives, insincerity, and all some bad qualities, very basic, mentioned by Kant, but it's not all. Respect for the law and free will, of course, are included in this system. Thus, this is the way to become fair and to build, to go the way of moral progress. So immoral inclinations can be restrained by the legal structure, and the legal structure should be improved there on the way of moral politics, in contrast to political moralism. Well, this is so we can see this way of negative wisdom has not only to prevent from damage, as Kant says in his pedagogical theory, but also there are many substantial elements that should be considered, and many even positive components, so to say, that we should follow them in order to, if we recognize our duty, in order to become more and more moral. So what we have next, this political wisdom, this negative wisdom turns to be even this political wisdom at the end. It's obviously that its negative wisdom requires, so to say, this political wisdom, and not only political prudence that is also necessary parallel with political wisdom, but when we leave it alone, it could follow us to only to our egoistic inclinations and perpetual referring to the weakness and frailty of human nature. So yes, we are talking about reforms, way of reforms, and the duty of every politician is even only endless approximation to the state of public law, while the hope for it is quite justified. Coming again to the Kant's thoughts on pedagogy. Yes, in the philosophy of right, there are projects to develop this Kant's concept of political wisdom within the concept of provisional right. It's, for example, developed this way by Elizabeth Ellis. I will not stop on it. as for the perspectives in the project of education in the after Kant's lectures on pedagogy, so yes, here in this citation is the way even the most important from Kant's instructions concerning even education of persons in order to make them free. So yes, equality, freedom, and independence, but also it should be not only positive freedom, but also negative freedom, preventing errors, and positive freedom, discipline, and cultivation, what Kant mentions in other place there, discipline and cultivation. So yes, because not to demand the freedom of others. Well, this was a quite not so analytical explanation, but rather the possible way to walk along Kant's texts on enlightenment, like in a garden with many stages, one from possible ways. Maybe I think it's time to come to discussion as well as this final educational quotation is on the screen. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much. And let's move on to the discussions. Jens, please.
Just a very small thing on the note of the definitions you started with. They don't seem to be definitions of quite the same thing, and not just because the second one from the conflict of the faculties is kind of prefaced with the word popular, but also because the first one is, well, you know, it's kind of self-emancipation. So call it reflexive. But the second one is kind of transitive, right? It's the enlightenment of somebody else, of a people. I don't know what conclusions to draw from that, but I was just struck by the fact that in the first case, the 1784 case, it's about yourself, and in the second case, it's about the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with this notion in general, but follow behind of it. What is important here, why I find it important to put them together, these two definitions, because okay, Kant explains his notion of enlightenment, and I think he hadn't large doubts in it until the end of his life, but there were nevertheless some sufficient remarks, and this remark come even from the later writing contest of faculties. It's very interesting as he discusses the very important question for him, a question whether humankind goes on the way of progress, and he finds signs of progress even in French Revolution with all its terrible development, but he says the reaction of European public on this revolution, on this change of order, is what is important sign about the morality in human nature. So this aim, this wish to make the order better. And again, but in contrast, at the end, this strange question about how to do this, from the bottom up or top down, and this notion that from the top, from the bottom up is doubtful because I don't know. Yes, because people, because what arguments Martin has mentioned above earlier today, because all doubts in the moral nature of people, they are enough from these doubts in Kant writings also. And this, even this way of negative wisdom, so that both subjects and princes are not strong enough to realize this Enlightenment project, not strong enough itself. It makes it important that Enlightenment is our hope on Enlightenment should be not only to this self-development, but also parallel on the state. At least I could say it was right for Kant's time, because Kant, he wrote, he argued in order to that princes hear him, and it was important for his time for monarchist states. So Prussia was monarchist, and now France was monarchist, and Russia also. Again,
I think I agree with it. I think you do get the impression, I thought that was very helpful, what you just said, that the Kant of the conflict, the faculties, is a bit more pessimistic than the Kant of the 784 essay, and that may just be reflected in those definitions of enlightenment, which take a different kind of perspective. Thank you.
Yes, Thomas, please.
I have a developmental question about Kant, because you're emphasizing that that the Kant in the 1780s is pretty optimistic about progress and what the social conditions for it are, whereas later on in his life in the 1790s, he becomes more skeptical about what situations they are in, and it comes to think about what needs to be done from the side of the state, like reduction of money that is spent for the military, and directing the money instead into public education, in the betterment of public education, and so on. Is this do you think that's a more general feature? Because I'm thinking about the thesis by Pauline Kleingeld that only in the 1790s, and also in the same text that you were discussing, Kant also began, only then Kant began to think about the immorality of slavery and colonialism. Yeah, whether these things are somehow related. That's sort of Kant becomes much more concrete in the ways in which he thinks that morality has to be realized in the 1790s, and more realistic, as it were, about the difficulties of realizing what morality demands of us. Is there a general pattern there?
So this tendency to his later period, is it general? Do you mean?
Or let me put it in a different way.
Or is this later view general also, and also accordingly to earlier periods?
According to what?
Earlier periods.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I'm simply talking about two stages in the critical phase, 1780s and the 1790s, broadly speaking.
Yes, thank you. I understand.
Whether these changes that you describe are substantive changes, or just sort of like gradual developments of things that were already there in the 1780s.
Yes, thank you. Interesting question. I haven't yet come to conclusion that there is substantial difference, and that there are two stages, two different stages between in Kant's critical period in these different decades. But yes, obviously, where Kant explains his most pessimistic observations of human nature in earlier writings on religion and on theodicy. This is what was also written at the beginning of 1719s, and all other writings then later. But maybe it could be explained that Kant had these notions earlier already, but so already in his lectures on pedagogy from 17th and 18th, he wasn't totally optimistic. He says that, for example, that some theoretics have certain naivety, that they are not right in the optimistic view. Maybe so I find it general, and I was not ready to general inclination in Kant's thinking, and I wasn't ready to make this graduation so clear. But maybe it could be explained that Kant was more pessimistic, that he just haven't time to come on these problems earlier, while he wrote his critique. So his basic theory, critique of purism, all three critiques, power of judgment, 89 finished. Now it was time to present his politics. Another motivation to present his political and legal theory was French Revolution, because Kant could come endowed as a revolutionary thinker, what was not the case, but he should explain it as soon as possible, so to say. Well, yes, I think it was general inclination from very beginning, but after some influences, yes, it's obvious that in writings of 1719s, it became more presented, stronger.
I'm asking because I'm wondering whether the pessimism is really a deeply anthropological pessimism, or whether it is, so to speak, merely a pessimism about the politics of his own day, the political situation of his own day. When one thinks about the Enlightenment essay, for instance, where in the second paragraph, going towards the second page, he speaks about the shackles in which different groups of human society as a whole are in. For instance, the whole so-called fairer sex he speaks of. That seems to be not to express a pessimism about human nature, a skepticism about the morality of human nature, but rather about the concrete societal situation in which he finds himself in. Yeah.
Okay.
The question is then, does his...
It's interesting.
So already in the 1780s, he's pessimistic or skeptical or critical of the social situation in which he finds himself in, yeah, in the Enlightenment. But I'm not sure whether he's already anthropologically as skeptical as he is in his later writings.
Oh, okay, I understand. It's interesting that in your view this is so. In my view, he is strangely optimistic about French Revolution in this late period, but foundations for his considerations on human nature, they had quite wide basement. I mean, his interest to geography, it was a regular interest in his whole life, and as he explains human nature, thinks about human nature in religion writings, he mentions, he remembers these testimonies and geographical descriptions. How do people live in America? So this wild life, and observations on how people live in small villages in Europe. But of course, always the main how he resumes is only the constructive way that we are capable of good. It should be our aim, and only in order to follow this aim, we should look directly into all our weakness, and in order to know how to win it, how to go through this barrier, so to say.
Thank you.